Well, behaviors are going to have to change, and this is one thing we're asking companies. You have to force behaviors, and at BlackRock we are forcing behaviors.
All right, y'all boys, welcome back to another video, bro. So look, we gonna dive into a topic that I have touched upon before, right? About the media, Hollywood, wokeness, all types of shit. Well, usually when I've been talking about this topic, we've been talking about the like a specific piece of media, like She-Hulk or Proud Family, whatever. But this time we're kind of talking about the thing as a whole, and we're going to be reacting to a video from Patrick Bet Davis, who kind of breaks it down a lot too. But I just want to show y'all this first. I want to show y'all this. The Oscars have gotten backlash to in terms of like their diversity and stuff. You know, they've been called racist. They've been saying that they only pander to white actors, white people. So it looks like they came out with new representation and inclusion standards. Okay. The Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences Representation and Inclusion Standards for Oscars eligibility in the Best Picture category are designed to encourage equitable representation on and off screen to better reflect the diverse global population. Which is saying that if you have a movie that is not diverse enough, you cannot get an Oscar. Doesn't that sound kind of weird? I mean, like, cause you're trying to force people, like, bro, just let shit happen, bro. Like, these things can be based on merit. If you feel like that the people who judge, right, if you feel like the people who judge are biased, then get new judges. You know what I'm saying? Get better judges. But this, you're trying to force people. And it's like, just like a movie like The Northman, which got a lot of backlash. You know, a lot of people felt like it was a good movie. I didn't watch it yet, but a lot of people said it was a good movie. But it got a lot of backlash before it even came out because it was a movie about a bunch of white Vikings, bro. You know what I'm saying? And everybody was white. There's not a black person in it. As you see it lately, if there's a historical movie or show, if it's slightly fictional, even if it's actually supposed to be nonfiction, they will race swap, or they'll try to make they'll try to make all the people diverse, even if it's like geographically there's only gonna be white people there, or if it was to be somewhere where it's only gonna be it's only white people. Yeah, if it'll be something that's usually white people, they make sure that it's not gonna be all white. They make sure that it's like, oh, the queen is black or the king is black, or there's Asians there too and there's Hispanics there too, and it's like, yo, where are they living at? This is not, everywhere was not America, bro. Okay, where it's super diverse like that. It's weird. Little Mermaid was something like that, where Prince Eric was a white dude, but then the queen was like a black lady, and there was like, I don't know. They do that shit a lot. And then Netflix with Cleopatra, they made Cleopatra black instead of like a Greek-looking tan woman, and they got backlash for that. A film can achieve this standard by meeting the criteria in at least one of the following areas. At least one of the lead actors or significant supporting roles is from an underrepresented racial or ethnic group. So it includes Black, East Asian, Hispanic or Latinx, Indigenous peoples, so like Native Americans, Middle Eastern, North African, Pacific Islander, South Asian, that's Indian, and Southeast Asian. A2, general ensemble cast. At least 30% of all actors in secondary or more minor roles are from at least two underrepresented groups. This may include women, race, gays, and disabled people. The main story or narrative has to be about women, race, gay people. So it's like, what do you think that does to creativity? If you're saying if you want to get nominated for something that you worked hard for, it has to involve something like this. Patrick Bet Davis talks about this shit, and we're gonna dive in right now.
Did you hear about the Academy Awards? Just announced right now, if you want to win Best Picture, to be nominated, what the new guidelines are. When they announced this, people lost their minds. I said, these new guidelines, if we follow these guidelines, the following movies in the past would have never won an Academy. Titanic, Forrest Gump, Godfather, The Hurt Locker, No Country for Old Men, Lord of the Rings, Midnight Cowboy, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Gone with the Wind, Schindler's List, The French Connection, Silence of the Lambs, All About Eve, Lawrence of Arabia, Casablanca, Godfather 2, The Gladiator, Dances with the Wolves, The King's Speech. I can list so many of them. According to the new guidelines, none of those movies would have ever won an Oscar, an Academy. By the way, it's as if they're not paying attention to data, because just in 2014, 9 years ago, 44 million of us watched the Academy. Do you want to know how many people watched the Academy in 2023? 18.7 million. It was the third worst. And guess what?
Isn't that crazy? Look how when they're starting, isn't that so weird? It's really weird. When they try to start forcing shit to be more diverse, people are watching less. Nobody cares about Oscars. That shit happened last year. Nobody gave a fuck. We're not watching that shit.
What the top 3 worst have been the last 3 years. Why? Because when Hollywood goes woke, they lose viewership, and Hollywood has forgotten why it started in the first place, why they left Jersey and Thomas Edison to go to Hollywood. Wait till you hear about the story of Hollywood. It's going to be a full circle coming back. Maybe a lot of people in Hollywood need to watch this to understand how it got started in the first place. If you get value out of this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, but more importantly, if you know people in Hollywood, text this to them, let them watch it and let them tear it apart. Let's get right into it. So I think Hollywood has forgotten how the whole thing got started. Look, when you and I, as fans, when we think about Hollywood, what do we think about? I think about the star. I think about the Walk of Fame. I think about the big sign in the mountains. I think about Chinese theater, Dolby Theater, but I think about the hub for creativity, for movies. I've been to these studios, I've been to shows, I've been to all of this. It's an incredible place with rich history. But Hollywood has forgotten why they escaped Jersey to go to Hollywood. Here's why. Early beginnings of Hollywood, 1900s and 1910s, the Hollywood story began when filmmakers started moving to California to escape the harsh patent laws imposed by, ready? Thomas Edison. His motion picture patent company in Jersey, who owned many patents on the movie making process and had strict rules and regulations in place for the film industry. When I think about film, I think about creativity, I think about edgy. If you force me to produce a product based on your guidelines, I'm losing creativity. I don't like it. Here's what I think about when I think about creativity. You can't put them in a box, right? You better do this or else. I'm creative. Leave me alone, right, to be creative. The second thing is, if you try to force an agenda down the audience's throat and they don't show up, guess what? It's not working.
Exactly.
You got to regroup and go back and say, let them be creative, no guidelines. Let the audience produce a product that the customers want.
Exactly, bro. When it comes to creative, right, you can't put rules on them. Okay, you can't put rules on. You have to do this or you have to do that, or it's not going to work. That's why you see a lot of movies like they fail, because they're putting too much rules on them. You're not allowed for the creative isn't allowed to really let their brain flow and make something happen. Because let's say there's a certain action that needs to happen in the movie. Oh, you can't do that because that looks offensive, or you actually need somebody else that looks like this. Like, bro, stop. And yes, there is structure to the stories. There are rules to storytelling, but we're talking about these outside forces that saying you can't do this, you can't do this, you have to do this. That's what's making the problem, bro. And that's when you get people making movies just to tick those boxes, instead of focusing on just making a good story, telling a good story that's entertaining, that provides value to people. Okay, you have to focus on the story.
To see. Hollywood's forgot about that as well. The golden age, 20s and 50s, characterized by the studio system. The big five studios, Paramount, MGM, Warner Brothers, 20th Century, and RKO, dominated, each with their own roster of stars. This period produced many of Hollywood's most beloved classics like Wizard of the Oz, Citizen Kane, Gone with the Wind, Casablanca. It's a wonderful
He said Wizard of the Oz.
Life Cycle, and many others. Then we go into the 60s and 80s. This is the post-studio system era. During this time, the old studio system had fallen. In the new Hollywood, this era is marked by films that had a more realistic and grittier aesthetic, such as Great Escape, The Godfather, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Taxi Driver, Alien. It was just creative. We're like, man, this is crazy. What's possible if they're doing stuff like this? What could come next? Then in the 80s was a rise of blockbuster films, Star Wars, E.T., Indiana Jones, Back to the Future, Die Hard, Scarface, and many others. Then it's the modern era, 1990s and 2000. This is when we see movies like Goodfellas, Fight Club, The Matrix, Pulp Fiction, Toy Story, Lord of the Rings, The Departed, Gladiator, The Dark Knight, and many others. And by the way, at this time, we're not caring about how many Middle Easterns are in the movie. I'm Middle Eastern. Can you imagine? I don't like The Dark Knight because I think Batman needs to be from Iran. What do you mean he needs to be from Iran? No, let's cast and see who.
One thing I will say, because I agree with that. Okay, I agree with that. One thing you do notice though is not a lot of all those movies they mentioned. Like, you don't really see any main characters that are black. You don't see any black faces, and all those movies that he mentioned. Not to say there aren't classic movies that star black people, because look at all the movies that Denzel Washington are in. That is in. Look at all the movies that Samuel L. Jackson is in. Look at all the movies that Jamie Foxx is in. There's plenty of black actors, black stars that that make great content, great movies. But yeah.
Who's the best Batman, okay? If that guy's the best Batman, let him be. Not because I'm upset because there's not enough Middle Easterns in there, or not enough women, or not enough this. I want to see a good film. When I'm watching a good film, I don't sit there and calculate and say, you know what, they're missing too many of this, they're missing too many. I say, what a great movie. I'm not even thinking about any of that stuff, but that's the mistake Academy is making today. And trust me, they're paying the price for it already, but they're not paying attention to data. Then we have 2010s to present. Increasing diversity and representation, both in front of the camera as well as behind the camera, driven by social media activism, increased calls for diversity. High-profile example includes Black Panther in 2018, Wonder Woman 2017, Moonlight 2016, and the woke remakes of Ghostbusters in 2016.
Ghostbusters was trash. Oh my gosh.
Star Wars in 17, Ocean's 8 and 18, American Pie, Girls Rules in 2020, which many of you probably haven't even seen. This time it was...
I didn't know that was real.
It's kind of like, well, we should do this because we ought to consider having more people in this background, that background. Okay, no problem. But it was still something that was being encouraged. All of a sudden, a couple events happened. That's not calling the Academy to force producers to do.
That's the thing. Like, okay, it's a natural rate of it. You know what I'm saying? Of course, as time goes on, you're gonna see more diversity naturally, because you can get more people in those fields. Because, like in those past days, it was hard for Black people and you know, minorities to get into those fields to tell their stories. It was harder, right? Because there's a lot of older people that's in charge, and they wasn't really, it just wasn't a lot of opportunity, okay? It wasn't a lot of opportunity. Now, in the present day, there's plenty more opportunity without it being forced. That's the difference. Now they're trying to force it when it's already naturally happening. It's already naturally happening.
Do this, or else you're not going to be nominated. Couple events. Number one, 2015 and 2016, the hashtag #OscarsSoWhite controversy, when all 20 actors nominated in the lead and supporting actor categories were white. This led to widespread criticism and calls for greater diversity in the film industry. In response, the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences implemented change to diversify its membership. Then in 2017, with the Me Too movement, when Harvey Weinstein was finally exposed for what he was doing, the corruption and other power players that were abusing their power against women, of course that had to be exposed. It was something that was necessary, but then that got people to say, well, what are we doing about it? And a lot of people started complaining, but rather than finding ways to address the issue, they started putting force and mandates in Hollywood, and when you do that, unfortunately, you eliminate creativity. In 2021, Hollywood diversity bill passes California legislature, and here's what it was. California's film tax credit aims to punish projects that don't hit diversity goals. Under a proposal from the governor's office, Newsom, productions that fail to meet the diversity goal will lose 4% of their tax credit allocation and a...
Oh my gosh, they're crazy. What the hell?
4% bonus for productions that meet diversity goals. The provision is part of a 5-year extension of the state's $330 million tax credit. Productions that receive the credit will be required to submit a diversity work plan under which they must commit to hire a crew that is broadly reflective of the state's demographics. Look, the way we get judged in business or in politics is your policies you come out with. If they're great, results should go up because it's all about data. If it doesn't, it goes down. It's a shitty idea. I've run a sales organization for 20-some years. If I change the commission structure and all of a sudden sales skyrocket and good behavior comes out, great, that was a good idea. But I've come out many times with a commission structure that sales dip. Guess what? Whether you like it or not, it's not a good idea. You got to figure out a way to adjust it, right? California passes this bill in 2021, okay? If viewership goes up with the academies, then good idea, Newsom. But if it doesn't, it's probably a bad idea. Again, 2014, 44 million of us watched the Academy Awards. Last year, 2023, this year, it's 18.7. He's not helping. However, let's see what happened in California. In 1920, 95% of films being made were based out of California. Let's see what it's looking like today. And let's first look at what states are leading the movies being made. The data that we have is from 2021.
Okay, number of feature films produced.
At the top, California, 574. The feature films were produced in California. Number 2 is New York at 91, Georgia 71, New Mexico 60, Louisiana 56. Matter of fact, the top 5 control 80% of them. Then it's Texas 45, Carolina 38, Michigan 35, Tennessee 34, Illinois 33. By the way, if you look at the list, Florida's not even in the top 10 list.
Yeah, not Florida, bro.
We, Valuetainment, plans on building one of the biggest media companies in the world, doing movies, docs, shows, podcasts, all of that, out of Florida, and we're constantly hiring. Complete side note, if you are looking for a gig, you got a lot of talent, look at our job openings, link below, you can find it. More importantly, if you're somebody that's a diehard Valuetainer and you love the Valuetainment gear, this is by far one of my favorite shirts. It feels so good.
Product placement.
Wearing the below, order one of these shirts. It's sick, that's all I can tell you. So let's go back to it. California, 1920s, 95% of the movies made in Hollywood were based out of California. And 30s, it goes to 90. In 40s, it goes back up to 95. Then it goes 90, 85, 80, 75, 70, 65, 60, 55. It went from 95% to 55.
Damn.
And the more regulation they create, people are going to leave California to make movies. Where am I going with this? So this is just California losing market share. Look what the Academy has just announced to make regulation to be even mentioned or nominated for Best Picture in 2024 moving forward. Their guidelines are even stricter than California's
Remember what the article? Well, remember when we just read some of them, right?
guidelines. All right, so here's what the new requirements include. Number one, at least one of the lead actors or significant supporting actors must be from an underrepresented racial or ethnic group. Number two, at least 30% of all actors in secondary and more minor roles must be from at least two underrepresented groups. Number three, the main storyline, theme, or narrative of the film must be centered on an underrepresented group. Number four, at least two of the creative leadership positions and department heads must be from underrepresented groups. Number five, at least six other crew and technical positions must be from an underrepresented racial or ethnic group. And number six, the distribution or financing company must have paid apprenticeship or internship for underrepresented groups. Are you already like losing your mind asking if this is a spoof or satire article? This is actually their new guidelines. And you may be asking, Pat, what is considered an underrepresented group? Here's what's defined as underrepresented group. Number one, women. Two, people of color. Three, LGBTQ plus people. Four, people with disabilities. Five, people with low-income communities. Six, people from rural areas. Seven, people from indigenous heritage. Again, earlier I mentioned to you all those movies that won Academies, the greatest movies of all time that won an Academy. None of them would be nominated according to these new guidelines. They just wouldn't be nominated. And they're fantastic movies. And when you and I watched it, we didn't think about why there's no Middle Easterns in there, why there's no this in there. But today, the rally cry is so big that they want to change it. So what could happen here? Let me give you a couple different industries to look at, or sects. The NBA, okay, a product that I loved watching for many years. Did you know 73.2% of players in the NBA are black? Did you know only 12.5% of America is black? What should we do? Should we lower that 73% and only allow 12.5% of...
That's the thing. If you apply it to other situations, it's not gonna make sense, right?
blacks to play basketball because we have to be diverse. You know, it has to be fair, right? Because only 13% of players are white, 3% are Latino. Well, nearly 24% of America is Latino. Why don't we have more Latino players? Did you know only 0.4% are Asian? We can look at a couple others, but we can look at NFL, 56% are black. Only 12.5% of America is black. By the way, we can look at Major League Baseball and say, well, how about Major League Baseball? Only 5.6% are black players in Major League Baseball, but 31.2% is Hispanic. We have one too many Hispanics playing in baseball. We can look at NHL. NHL is a complete different statistic. 84% of folks in NHL are white. Do you realize?
Right. So we're gonna force. They're gonna force the hockey players to. You think what I'm saying? You see where it's going with it, right? If you're gonna force it somewhere else and you apply those same standards to a different, industry or whatever, it doesn't make sense, right? It don't make sense. They're not going to do it. There's just things that just naturally are the way they are. And over time, they change and grow. They're just trying to force shit to happen. No, bro, no. It don't make sense.
Ridiculous this is.
It's really retarded.
Are forcing things to win that we are not interested in and forcing things to change that we're interested in. Nobody watches the NBA and says, too many black players. No. It's great. It's whoever can perform and win at the highest level. Nobody watches baseball and says, one too many Hispanics. What is the difference with Hollywood? Well, why is Hollywood doing this? We got to make WNBA better because we only have 456,000 people watching the WNBA playoffs and the finals, but we have 17 million. That's not fair. No. People are not as interested in WNBA as they are in the NBA.
But you have to force behaviors. You have to make them interested. Force them to be interested. Yeah.
It's very simple. It's called interest. You can't force interest. If I try to force my kid to like a sport he does not like, he's not going to like it. He's going to hate it. There's no difference between that. We have to be interested in it. And Hollywood, unfortunately, is trying to force people to be interested in a product that they're not interested in, and they're paying a price for it. And by the way, if Hollywood has left California to other states, trust me, Hollywood will very soon leave America and do movies in other states, because the world is a very small place today with the OTTs.
Countries?
They're also going to pay a price for it. And not only that, do not be surprised if very soon people say, I don't really care if I'm nominated for an Academy Award or not. I simply don't care. Funds are going to come out saying we are funding movies that don't care about winning an Academy Award.
Yep.
And the credibility of the Academy Award is going to get smaller, and smaller, and smaller, and smaller. And eventually people are going to be like, yeah, I really don't care. It's still going to matter today for the next couple decades. But this kind of strategy, history tells us.
Man, I wouldn't even say decades. I ain't gonna lie to you, bro. If people are focused on making a good movie, they don't care. Okay, I don't care if you gotta get an Oscar or not. What you gonna do? You can't lower the visibility of a movie. If it's good, if people like it, it'll go crazy. People make sure they get seen because it's good as fuck. It's Hollywood and movies and storytelling. It's all about telling good stories, bro. That's what it comes down to. You gotta tell good stories that interest people, that resonate with people.
Eventually, they'll either have to pivot and someone's going to have to knock some senses into them, or they're going to say, honestly, you keep forcing your crowd to all do this the way you're doing it, we're going elsewhere. It's always been that way. If you're watching this, you're from Hollywood, you're pissed off on what I said, I totally get it. You don't agree with me on where I'm at, you know.
I'm curious about what his plans are for doing stuff in Florida. I think in order to make filmmaking a little bit easier, more accessible in Florida, they're going to have to like pass some laws that, you know, and like tax credits and stuff that make it easier. Cause I'm pretty sure Florida don't really have like too much that's in favor of it. I'm not saying they're against it, but it's just not too much that really helped them out to do the shit. You know what I'm saying?
Philosophical and all this stuff. This is the only thing I ask you. We love the content you create, Hollywood. When we watch you, when you're just trying to play loose and tell a story without force. When you force, we don't like it. That's how simple it is. And by the way, making movies is one of the most effective ways of telling stories and changing people's perspective by choice, not by force. If you do force, you're gonna lose an audience. If you do it by choice, we'll follow you.
That's another thing that's facts, bro. Because you know, this America is very diverse. There's so many different types of people in America. So there are people that don't interact with other types of people. You know, there's places where black people don't even seen a white person before. There's places where white people have never even seen a black person before, or a Hispanic person, or an Asian person, and you know, vice versa. And, you know, there might be some bias that comes with that. There might be some discrimination that comes with that, because you don't know what you don't know. If you only see, like the culture and stuff on social media, you're going to make those generalizations in your head when you see certain things. You know, black people and white people, right? Let's keep it simple, black and white. But through stories, through movies that are specifically just made to tell a story, to tell a good story, that helps with people's perception of things, okay? Because unfortunately, perception is reality, and the media controls a lot of people's perceptions. So technically, the media controls a lot of people's realities. So imagine if that amount of power was used for good, right? Because at the end of the day, if it resonates, it resonates. You can brainwash some people, but there's always going to be a good majority of people that's like, nah, something's off about this shit, bro. Something's off. That's how you see movies failing. You see movies like fucking, like the Ghostbusters, the all-female Ghostbusters. That shit flopped. That shit was terrible. You know what I'm saying? That's why people are saying, like, shit is woke. I don't want to see it. Get out my face. Because, like PBD said, it's all about people's interests. You can't force people's interests. So, anyways, my main point was, like, when people see certain stories about other people that they're not they're not used to or whatever, or just other people's perspectives, that gives them a new perspective on okay, like, yeah, see, these other people that I've never seen before, they're just like me. We go through the same stuff. But instead they want us fighting about bullshit. You see poor white people fighting with poor black people, poor black people fighting with poor white people, and meanwhile we got so much in common compared to the motherfuckers that's watching us fight and laughing. The powers that be, okay? It's real shit, bro. It's real shit, bro.
I got another video I want you to watch. You may not like it. If you haven't liked this video, do not watch this next video. If you've liked this video, you're gonna like the next video. It's a video directed to people from California. I would warn you because it's going to trigger many of you who are emotionally attached to your great state of California, a state I love, that I lived in for 24 years.
We have to force behaviors. As you can see, that's like the reoccurring theme. They want to force shit to happen. And I've talked about it before. I remember I said something about forced diversity before and someone got mad, of course. It was like a LGBT person. So, of course, it was like, oh, forced diversity, it's not real. Yes, it is. When they create a movie, a story, and the focus is only on the person's identity and not about the actual story itself and the point of the story, guess what? You're forcing diversity, because the only reason you made that was to have a gay person or a trans person or a lesbian person. Okay? The point was not to tell a good story that entertains everybody. That's forcing diversity. Something like She-Hulk. You know, She-Hulk is a cool character everybody fuck with. You know, people. You know, cool comics character people fuck with. And instead of making a show actually focus on telling a good story about She-Hulk, it's like a self-insert, like these 30-something-year-old single white wine wine addicts. Okay, it's like, you know, this liberal white women that drink wine every night that complain about their life. That's what it was about. Instead of telling a good story, they said, what the?" Even at the end, it was like, what the? Why would we tell a good, entertaining hero's journey story for? Like, bro, and even when they did talk about topics that some women face, like, let's say, like, nudes getting exposed or trying to use their identity against them, shit like that, they couldn't even commit to that, bro. They couldn't even commit to that. And it's like, bro, like, just focus on telling good stories. If you're a creative person out here and you're watching this video, just focus on telling a good story, whether everyone's black or everyone's white or it's whatever. If it's a story that's meaningful and you know will resonate with people, focus on telling it. That's some of the things that's wrong with conservatives too, and that's why they lose culture wars all the time. Conservatives, Republicans, because they feel like, at least a lot of, I guess, the old-fashioned ones, like old white people, the old ass ones, they see it as like, you know, waste of time. Why would you waste time watching movies and watching TV? You know, it's all to try to control you. Da da da. I'm like, bro, storytelling has been with us since the beginning of human history. It's part of life, bro. It is what it is. You have to focus on that and use that to tell us your stories. That's why people don't take them niggas serious. But hey, man, I appreciate y'all for watching. If you got something of value from this video, let me know down in the comments down below what you think. And go check out my channel for more. You know, I'll be dropping a lot all the time. So, peace out, and I'll see you to the next one.